guys, and welcome to Football Manager 2017 as Real Madrid. Now, as you can see, day one we've just taken over. We've been hired as the Real Madrid manager. Not done anything yet, barring going through these messages, which is just your typical messages you get at the start of the game. You've been hired, you know, your little welcome pack thing. We're going to skip those meetings because they're fairly cookie cutter and the same all the time. So, transfer update. It's actually relatively small. We've got a number of players loaned out. That's fine, don't need to do anything there. Injury update. Unfortunately, Cristiano Ronaldo starts injured, but hopefully we've got enough in the squad to get by even without our talisman. And then we have the staff responsibilities, which I've already assigned. So the first thing that I do on day one when I'm taking over a new club is set the tactic. Now, as we're obviously one of the strongest teams in the world, it basically means I get to play with my preferred tactic. I don't have to worry about not having the players to play the style that I like. So let's just go through just now, and we'll assign the positions over here. It's the shape that I like currently, the 4-2-3-1, and we're just going to assign these roles, and then I'll take a quick look through assigning players to the team just in a rough outline to see the construction of the team, see if there's perhaps any weaknesses or anything we need to address in the transfer market. So, first and foremost, the overall shape of the tactic. I like to play controlled possession based football, very fluid. Players, you know, roaming out of their positions and defenders getting forward and, you know, so on and so forth. And over here, I like to play a lower tempo, not super low, but lower than usual, with a higher defensive line. And I like to play fairly narrow because we have the strength and the players. We have the quality that we can keep it narrow, play the majority of the game narrow, and then we can draw the opponents in. And they, you know, trying to come inside and mark players and so forth. That can create space for an overlap from our fullbacks, which we're going to get to later. Closing down, I just leave us sometimes. I don't like to go particularly aggressive because you can get picked off. You know, obviously we're going to be taking on Barcelona as our main rivals domestically, and also Atletico Madrid, who like to hit you on the counter-attack. So if we were to go more and go super aggressive, we could get picked off. You know, we're going up against the likes of Iniesta and Messi and, you know, world-class players in Barcelona. So I'm just going to keep the general tactic to sometimes. And I'm going to trust our players' intelligence to understand when the correct sometimes is and when the incorrect sometimes is. So I don't play the offside trap because, again, I tend to find teams playing on the counter attack can break the offside trap. So I just tend to leave that. Prevent short goalkeeping distribution because we're playing one up top. It's unlikely that we're going to be able to do that. You know, teams playing 2 centre-backs or 3 centre-backs are still going to manage to distribute it from the goalkeeper. So, not really much use to that for me. Again, tighter marking. I'm not overly concerned with that either. You know, we're going to be playing weaker teams than us, so we should be mainly focused on our offensive game. And for teams like Barcelona, again, players with the likes of Messi or Suarez or Neymar, they'll be, if you get too tight to those kind of players, they're going to do you for skill. They're going to turn you and so forth. So I'm going to leave that one as well. Now, in terms of our passing build-up, we want to play out a defence and we want to exploit the middle. That will keep the play narrow. Directness, we are going to go for shorter passing, but not retain possession, as I think that could make us too passive. So, come down here. I want the players to be more expressive, give them more creative freedom and roam from their positions, because we have a lot of players up front who can play out wide, they can play central, they can play striker. So to have all of them able to roam and intermingle with each other is going to link up well with our fluid style, and hopefully that should lead to confusing defenders not knowing who to mark. And you know, our players are intelligent as well, obviously being Real Madrid, so they'll be able to get into those spaces that we create from that. Now, run at defence or dribble less, I'm going to leave blank, because while we do have players who could run at the defence and could beat defenders and commit defenders, we also have incredibly good passers of the ball, so I don't want to tick either one of them, frankly. Again, I'm going to leave it to the players' intelligence. And for this, I'm going to tick work the ball into the box, because although we have good long range shooters, I tend to find the game prioritizes. I tend to find this is more of a mechanical choice, frankly, for me, because I tend to find it works better in game. You know, in reality, if I was randomly the Real Madrid manager, I wouldn't instruct them to do this. I would, I would trust them to know what to do in the situation, whether to take long shots or whether to work the ball into the box or what have you. But for this, I'm going to work the ball into the box, and as I alluded to earlier, because we're going narrow, trying to draw defenders in, I'm going to look for the overlap, which will allow, and that's us done here, that will allow these fullbacks who are going to be set to attacking, that will allow them to find space. As these players come inside, they will draw the opponent defenders inside, which will create room for the fullback up the wing. That's a theory. Now, again, I like a sweeper keeper, think Manuel Neuer, because these defenders are going to be ball playing defenders. I'm going to set one to a stopper and one to try and cover. Oh, ball playing defender. One to try and cover. So, as they're going to be ball playing defenders, they may wander, trying to play a pass. And of course, these defend it. Pretty much our defence is going to be pushed higher up, and it's going to be relatively offensive when we're in possession. So the idea being the sweeper keeper should deal with balls that go over the top. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but that's the theory behind the strategy. So our keeper, just again outlining the bones of this, is going to be Navas. Now, as you can see, his preferred role would just be a standard goalkeeper, but to some degree we're going to shoehorn him into this role. Later on we might try and recruit someone or train someone up who's a bit more specialised in that role, but for now Navas is going to be able to do the job. So the right fullback, Carvajal. We also have Danilo here, but I like Carvajal, and I have a bit of let's see if the stat's still in the game actually. Where are we? My profile. Do we still have... Yeah, domestic player bias. I have a bit of domestic player bias, which means I'm more likely to play Spanish players, frankly, because I'm a Spanish club. It just feels right. There's no reason, there's no mechanical reason for it in the game. It's not going to help us necessarily. I just like to play Spanish players when I'm a Spanish club. Now, ball playing defenders, Sergio Ramos and Varane. Now, Varane appears to prefer to be the covering defender, and Ramos appears to be the prefer to be the stopper. So we'll put them that way round. And the left fullback is going to be... Oh, Contral seems to prefer going forward. But we'll play Marcelo. Now, in terms of the middle of the pitch, these two players here are going to be... One is going to be offensive and one is going to be somewhat defensive, but I'd still expect, as we're Real Madrid, both of them to contribute. Generally, our play is going to be going forward most of the time because of the quality of our team. Now, maybe against Barcelona, we'll explore formations where we're a bit more rigid. Maybe this formation will drop back or what have you. But our general formation, I like, and this may be dependent on how the players feel about it, but I like a roaming playmaker. And how good the game says the player fits into that role doesn't necessarily always fit. So for example, I'm a Celtic fan and I play this formation that I'm going to do now as Celtic because I can just trash the Scottish League and it's super easy. And I have Stuart Armstrong playing this role. It doesn't say he's particularly good at it, but when you actually play games, he is good at it. So it's one of those things where we're going to have to do a wee bit of trial and error here and see how these players get on. Now this, I usually like to have a deep lying playmaker or even a ball winning midfielder. So by default, ball winning midfielder support is what I'll do, but we might go for a deep lying playmaker if it suits the players more. So let's see, ball winning midfielder, see there, 2.5 for Casemiro there, 2.5 for Modric. Okay, if we change that to be a deep line playmaker, we get, well there you go, you get 4 for Modric and 4 for Toni Kroos as well. Although Modric, right, okay, Modric prefers to be the roaming playmaker, somewhat trial and error. I've not actually been Real Madrid before in 2017. So we'll go Modric as a roaming playmaker and we'll go Toni Kroos as the deep line playmaker. Now, we're on to the main driving force of the team here. So we have the defence set up, the goalkeeper and the midfielders. Now this three-man line in behind the striker is perhaps the most important part of this tactic, and perhaps the most important portion of Real Madrid's team. So Real Madrid, obviously with Ronaldo and having Gareth Bale as well, they rely a lot on the players in these positions. So we're going to have, let's see, with a narrow game plan, I would be more inclined to go with inside forwards on both sides, and with some form of attacking midfielder or advanced playmaker, but again we'll see how it suits. So on the right, Gareth Bale, 4 stars as an inside forward. Is that his preference? Well, his preference would be to attack rather than support. Yeah, I have no problem giving him that role. Basically, the difference with with a support duty, they're more like they're going to cut into space and try and play through balls to the forward up here, or they're going to try and take long shots. Now, because we have to work the ball into the box, I would suspect, I'm not certain about this, I haven't tracked the statistics, I would suspect they're more likely then to cut inside and pass rather than take the long shot, because we're telling them to work it into the box. So if I give them the attack duty, they're more likely to run at the defence, and because this is going to be Gareth Bale and he's a tricky player, he can beat a man, he can run at the defence, and as it says here, he's got the option of shooting, passing or crossing, so he can run at the defence and cause havoc, no problem with that. Now the other side, we'll leave the centre for now, and on the other side obviously we're going to have Ronaldo, and he also prefers to be attack, again no problem with that. Now and as you can see, again, he's injured, so when we come to game time we may have to pick someone else for this position, but we're just outlining the bones of the team here, and how the team how the ideal 11 would look. Now you might see a few of these players with these bars not very high, indicating that it's not the player's preferred role. And as I say, I don't pay too much attention to that, because players tend to outperform this, and some players, you can see here, I mean Toni Kroos is full and Modric is two from the top there, so he's competent and he's natural. Now it could very well be that Modric outperforms him. It's just how the game goes sometimes. It's just how the game goes in real life sometimes. Sometimes you have a player playing out of position who lights the game on fire, and you have a player playing in his natural role and he sucks, frankly. So the attacking midfielder is going to be James Rodriguez. Now his role he prefers is an advanced playmaker support, which is fine by me. I have no problem playing that, so we'll stick him in there. And again, you have Isco in behind him here, and we even have Asensio in there and Kovacic, so who may be playing deeper but could fill in here. So we have options, but this is just again outlining the main team who would play if everyone was fit. Now the striker is going to be Benzema, and I assume he'll be an advanced forward. Oh, he's a false 9 apparently. I'm unsure. I'm going to leave him as an advanced forward just now. We may change it going forward, but we're gonna leave it just now to what I would personally play. I don't play a false 9. I like a striker to be a striker. I like a striker to run through the defensive line and smack the ball into the net. That's pretty much what I like the striker to do, but we'll see. Who knows? Now, in terms of our set piece takers, I don't generally go in and develop corner routines and all that kind of business. I generally just leave it to the players on the pitch to get on with it. Corners, in terms of who's going to be taking, I mean, Toni Kroos should just take both sides. He's either footed and has 18 for corners. Now, free kicks, again, I mean, Ronaldo Ronaldo only has 15 free kick accuracy there, which is interesting. Long shot's 19. I don't know if that actually doubles up with the free kick taking when he has a long range free kick. It's tough actually, you know. Bale can take, James can take. It's a tough decision. It's a tough decision. Do you know what? I'm going to leave it blank, and whoever fancies their chances can step up. That's what I'm going to do, because basically, unless it randomly chooses Varane or Carvajal to hit it, whoever is going to hit it has a decent enough stat and a decent enough chance of doing damage. I'm going to leave throw-ins as well, because it's just going to, you know, it's just going to be the fullback that takes a throw-in, which is fine. Now, penalty taker is going to be Ronaldo, and should he not be there, it's going to be Rodriguez or Benzema, generally. Now, that's pretty much it. Captains should be, yep, Ramos and Marcelo. Ramos and Marcelo. You know, opposition instructions on the day, always, depending on who you're playing. So, tactically, we seem to be set up here. Now, for these alternative tactics, because we're such a strong side, what we're going to do is just set up variations of our main formation. So this is basically just the same thing, but with the attacking midfielder dropped to a defensive position. This is going to be more structured, and it's going to be a countering formation. This is what we're probably going to take away to Barcelona. So our tempo should be higher. We should be dropping a little deeper. Pass directness more direct. Fairly narrow again. And this is something that's probably stay on the feet so we don't go flying in and get done by Messi. Yep, sometimes be more disciplined. Now, this formation may change over time. So, for example, I haven't selected anything here. So, play out of defence is somewhat contradictory to the higher tempo with the more direct passing. So, and the way that I want this to work, I want to be able to hit Ronaldo and Bale should we win the ball back from a Barcelona attack. So I'm not going to tell them to do that, nor am I going to tell them to clear it to the flanks, because essentially they could just punt it. It's not really looking for a long pass to the flanks, it's just punting it long. So perhaps we'll click exploit both flanks, and we're going to leave it there because in the final third, crossing, overlap, etc., none of them really work for us, to be honest. Shoot on sight could be wasteful. If we look for the overlap, that encourages the fullbacks to bomb on, and we could easily get caught on a counter. Hit early crosses, again we have Benzema up front, so we don't have a big target man there. Should we play Morata, that might be more useful to us. And work the ball into the box again is going to encourage them to slow down. I'm going to leave them there, and this might be a bit of trial and error, because although we're a very strong team, when we go away to Barcelona, I expect to lose more times than to pick up any points. So that's a bit of trial and error. And the last formation, I'm inclined to take somewhat of a punt and pick some kind of 4-3-3 formation. So something like that. Make it fluid again and make it attacking. Higher tempo, shorter passes, play out, exploit the middle, work the ball into the box, overlap. This is a super aggressive tactic. Perhaps this could be for when we're chasing a game. So we're going to go narrow again. We don't need to retain possession. Closing down more. Maybe not get stuck in, but expressive in Rome again. So that's a bit of an experiment, and we'll come back to that. But for now, what we're going to work with, let's get these guys back to where they're supposed to be. What we're going to work with is this shape, and what we're going to do is adapt people into this shape. So this has been a bit of a long tactic preparation, but it's going to pay off because we now have a clear direction of the style we want to play, and what we're going to do is we're going to try and find players or train players who fit in these positions. So we're not going to go out and buy, for example, we're not going to go out and buy a sensational defender because we're playing ball playing defenders. We're not going to go out and play a defender who's a bruiser and he's, you know, amazing in the air, great tackler, but his passing is 4 or something like that. That wouldn't work for the format, even though he could, you know, he could be a classic defender, defends and clears his lines and be an absolute rock, but he doesn't fit in the team. So because we have a philosophy now, we can go out and target players for that philosophy. Now the next thing is to pick the bench, and that'll give us an idea as to whether anybody in the team is surplus to requirements or perhaps is needing to go on a loan move to another club. So the goalkeeper, Kiko Casilla. Nacho is a bit of an oddity because generally speaking in past Football Manager games he's been rotten and needs to be sold immediately, and I do see that clubs want him. Do you know, I'm going to go ahead and see what we can get for him. Now I'm just going to offer him out. Now this is a good thing here, we can offer him out for an unspecified amount, so that will invite the clubs that are interested to make a bid for him, but we haven't actually set our own asking price, which is important because a lot of the time the AI just plays on what you pick. So you could pick 15 million as the asking price and they could bid 8, and it's annoying because if you ask for lower then they bid lower, and if you ask for higher then they'll bid higher. It's messy because it's very exploitable. So I could offer him out for 15 million instead of unspecified, and I could get a bid of 8 million. Then I just reject all those bids and offer him out for 16 million, and I would get a bid of 9 million. You know, it's very, and I don't like doing things like that. It just cheapens the game, I think. So another thing I'm going to do, these players here in the dark blue are players who are Real Madrid players but are out on loan at other clubs. So Diego Llorente here is out at Malaga. So although he may have a future in the first team, what we're going to do, because he's out on loan, right click, under 19s, and we don't need to think about him for the rest of the season. Same with Jesus Vallejo, down he goes. Just check if there's any more of them. Yep, Borja Mayoral as well. In case you haven't guessed by the accent, I'm not Spanish, so if I butcher any of these then please bear with me. And Pepe's one of those, you know, Pepe's 33 years old, he's still a decent player, we're not going to rake in any money for him. I mean, it says over here, media description, world class centre back, so he's still going to do a job. So he stays, you know, nothing long term with him, but he's going to do a job. Danilo, good player, able deputy for Carvajal, no problem giving him a spot on the bench. Just check something here. So Carvajal, Danilo could cover, Ramos can cover Carvajal if it comes to it. No one can, well, Carvajal can cover Marcelo if it comes to it. Okay, I'm going to give the fullback slot on the bench to, oops, I've given it to Contrail there. I'm going to give it to Danilo. Casemiro is our main defensive midfield player in there. He's a good player, he's a solid hand more than he is a superstar, to be honest, but he's going to do a job. His work rate is 19 and his teamwork is 17, stamina 19, you know, aggression 18, bravery 16. He's got great stats mentally and physically for a defensive player. I mean, even technically, 14 passing, 15 tackling, you know, 14 first touch. He's definitely capable. He's only 24 years old, so he can get a spot. Now how many do we have just now? So we have 12 spots on the bench just now, which we'll obviously fill for the friendlies, but obviously when we get going in Spain in domestic action we're only going to have 7 slots, so there's only 3 slots left to fill when we're thinking about the bench that we'll be assigning for league action. So we need wide men, so Lucas Vazquez here is the only real natural wide player. You know, players such as Asensio and Isco can do it, but Vazquez is the only one natural. so he makes the bench. 2 spaces left, and that's going to be Isco and, oops, I'm going to click Contrao again. He seems to really want on the bench. And Morata will be the striker. So that leaves us with these 5 players who are not, most weeks are not going to make the bench. Unless we have injuries and so forth. So the thing is, I don't really want to let any of them go. Maybe Mariano, because he's kind of not good enough. So I'll let him go. A lot of clubs want to loan him, so let's see if we can get a loan as a key player, as a striker. Playing wage percentage. We'll see if we can get somebody to pay 100% of his wages, and we'll try and be sneaky for a little 60k fee and 100 grand if he doesn't play. We'll try and see who takes that. No doubt the AI will come back and bid 0% for his wages, but we'll see what we can do there. So, an Asensio, who wants Asensio out of curiosity? Manchester City want to buy him. I'm going to see if someone will take him on loan as a key player, just because he's going to be a fantastic player in the future, and again, domestic player bias, he's Spanish. His wage isn't particularly high, so someone might pay the whole 100%. Again, I'm going to go for the 60 and 100, just to see what the AI does, frankly. So we'll go with that. We'll see if we can get him game time. Now, obviously, because we're such a strong side, we haven't really identified many weaknesses in the squad. So, you know, it's not as if we have to go to scouting and immediately look for a right back. You know, we have all these positions covered with players who I'm happy with. The only thing we might need is a bit of depth in the squad, which is why I was reluctant to loan some players out. But those young players, such as, again, Mariano, who might never make the grade. I mean, he's 22 years old, he's not going to improve that much, so he might never make the grade, but we'll loan him out and see how he does. Asensio, on the other hand, will eventually make the grade, but he gets loaned out as well, again if we get the right offer, because he's going to be limited in terms of playing time, because he's behind Rodriguez and Isco in there. So if I can get him out on loan and he can play first team games all the time, that's preferable. But if he goes and Mariano goes and Nacho goes, actually, we're left with Contrao and Kovacic in addition to the 7 substitutes. So that leaves us with a squad size, you know, 11 players, 7 substitutes is 18, and then the 2 players is only 20. So we really would ideally like the squad to be a bit bigger than that. But what we're going to do just, in fact, we're going to go real quick into training. Team training, we're just going to do this real simple fitness, and I expect them to be able to cope with a very high intensity level because they're Real Madrid players. And I like a lot of match training as well. So what we're going to do, do that real quick. Back to the inbox. And we're going to advance just now. Just so we can see what kind of bids come in. Because our activity in the transfer market will depend a lot on what we get for loans and transfers and so forth.